Hungarian Folk Tales. The Discontented Cooking Pot. The cooking pot was bored with boiling and bubbling all day, so he began to complain to the walking stick. "I can't bear to stay here anymore." "I too long to leave this place," replied the walking stick. "So let us set out together, my friend." "Yes, let's, for the journey is always more pleasant when one has company." The pot and the walking stick set out to see the world. Neither of them was terribly clever. The pot, as of course you know, was empty inside, and the walking stick was hardly famous for his wit. At first, however, things looked promising. For when the pot was almost trampled on the path by the angry bull, the walking stick leapt up and began to whack the bull soundly on its backside. And while the walking stick was walloping the bull, the pot jumped into the river. "Swim, swim," shouted the walking stick. "I'll catch up with you soon." The walking stick soon grew bored with whacking the bull, so he too jumped into the water. He thumbed his nose at the bull, who bellowed from the bank, but was unable to follow him. At the end of the village, the walking stick came across a pack of stray dogs. And when the dogs attacked, the cooking pot shouted, whack them, my friend." And the stick gave the dogs a sound beating. And as they continued on their way, they came across the terrible monster of the mines. The monster of the mines was terrified, for he had never seen a pot and a walking stick out for a stroll all on their own before. "Horrors, what a fright! I'll grab my bag and take flight." And the monster of the mines fled and took shelter in the hollows of the cliff. And as he ran so quickly, he failed to notice that there was a hole in his bag, and glittering gold coins were falling on the ground. But the pot and the walking stick noticed. Come, let's gather them up." The walking stick neither dillied nor dallied. He gathered up the coins and put them into the pot. The pot was brimming with gold. No one would have dared to call him empty-headed anymore. "How fortunate we've been," they said to each other, and they began to weave the most elaborate plans, visions of wealth and grandeur for their future together. The pot thought to himself, "I shall find someone who will wrap me in wire and make me immortal. They will cover me with wire, strong wire, all over, that I may never crack or break. And once I have ensured my immortality, I will ensure myself a life of leisure and comfort. I will bribe the cook to make sure I am always brimming over with stuffed cabbage." For the pot simply adored stuffed cabbage. Then the walking stick's vanity also rose to the fore. "From now on, I will be a great lord. And after I have split the riches with my friend, I will find a skilled blacksmith and have a golden button made for my head." But then again, he thought after a moment, if I had all the gold we found to myself, I wouldn't have to content myself with a mere button. I could have my entire head covered in gold. Heavens! It would be simply splendid. I would be the most beautiful walking stick in the country. Maybe even the king would notice. Perhaps he would even want me to be his sceptre. And why should I not have all the gold? For am I not the stronger one? His head was teeming with cruel and murderous thoughts. And when the pot lay down his head to sleep at night, the walking stick snuck over to his side and delivered him a single lethal whack. And thus the pot's good fortune turned out to be deadly misfortune. The poor pot shattered fragments, clattered, clacked and cried out, "Murderer! Murderer!" But the walking stick barely noticed his cries. and he stuffed the golden coins in a sack and set off to find a blacksmith. "God's blessings on you, good blacksmith. What have you brought me, honourable walking stick?" "A sack full of golden coins, blacksmith." "Where did you get that, you rascal?" "I found it by the side of the road," said the walking stick, feigning a look of innocence. "And what do you plan to do with all that money?" "You are but a mere walking stick. Good blacksmith, make me a golden knob for my head." The blacksmith took the golden coins, melted them, shaped them into a lovely knob, and soldered it on to the walking stick's head. "There you are," he said to the walking stick. "You may now set out to find yourself a wife." But his golden head, itself the fruit of his cruel act, would bring him no joy, only misfortune. His path took him deep into the forest, and Black Jack, the infamous bandit, spotted him. And the brigand spoke. "The knob on that walking stick is made of gold, if I am not mistaken. Look, Matty, how shiny it is. Let's chase him down, grab him and take his golden knob." "Stop, stop," they cried. But naturally the walking stick did not stop, but ran from the bandits. He was gasping for breath when he reached the top of the high hill, and the bandits were still hot behind him. At the bottom of the tremendous chasm gaping below him flowed the waters of the mighty river. The walking stick had little choice but to jump into the waters below. He tried to summon his courage. "I am, after all, a walking stick. I can swim. I am made of wood. I will reach the far bank. I am, after all, a walking stick. I can swim. I am made of wood. I will reach the far bank." And so he jumped into the waters. But lo, soon the waves were splashing over his head. He sank to the bottom, never again to rise to the surface. For the golden knob, the spoils of a cruel misdeed, pulled him into the depths, down, 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 to a watery grave. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Miraculous Bird. Once upon a time, in a distant land, where the curly-tailed pig digs at the soil with its snout, there lived a penniless man. He was so poor that his daily meal consisted of nothing more than the things he was able to gather together in the woods and the meadows. Once, when he was trying to catch a bird for his lunch, he caught a very beautiful crow. The bird was as black as night, yet its feathers shone like the stars. The man took the crow home, and his children were delighted. They put it in a cage and kept it and cared for it. The crow grew, and eventually it became so tame that it ate from their hands and hopped about the room. One day a wanderer passed by. He looked at the bird, took it in his hands, and happened to look under its wings. Underneath its left wing was written that whoever ate of the bird's liver would become a king. Under its right wing was written that whoever ate of its heart would find 3 gold coins underneath his pillow every day. Now, who doesn't want to be a king? So the wanderer resolved not to rest until it had eaten the bird's liver. The poor man also saw the writing, but he did not know how to read. So he asked the wanderer what it said. "Alas, nothing good," he said. "This bird will die in 2 days. It would be better to kill it now. I happen to like the taste of crow, so if you roast it, I will give you 1,000 gold coins for the meat." So the wanderer placed the money on the table. The poor man regretted having to kill the poor animal, but he was in dire need of money. He didn't think much about it, but simply slayed the bird and roasted its meat. As the meat of the bird was roasting, the poor man left the kitchen for a moment. The children were playing around, and as they were hungry, they snatched the heart and the liver from the pan. When they placed the meat of the crow in front of the wanderer, surely enough he could find neither the heart nor the liver. He was furious. "Hey, you wretched man, where is its heart? Where is its liver?" But neither heart nor liver were to be found. Well, not having found the heart, the wanderer realized that he would never become king. He jumped up, not having eaten a single bite, and left. The poor man despaired. He regretted all the money he had lost. So he told his sons that they should vanish from his sight and not return until they had gotten all the money back. How the two sons worried, but what could they have done? They set out to find the 1,000 pieces of gold. They ambled and rambled with heavy hearts, until around sunset they arrived at the edge of a large forest. There they spent the night. When they awoke the next morning, a soldier was happening by. He gave them directions to the town, and the two boys set off. The king, it turned out, had very recently died. When they arrived in the town, they saw a beautiful golden bench. The older boy sat down on it, and the younger lay down underneath it, and they both immediately fell asleep. The next day, they awoke to the sounds of a large crowd of people who had gathered around them and were cheering them enthusiastically. The people took the two boys to the palace. The one who had eaten the crow's liver was immediately chosen as king. As it so happens, according to the customs of the town, anyone who didn't know that the old king had died and sat down on the golden bench would be chosen as the new king. They had had a total of 7 kings, each of whom had been chosen according to this custom. So this is how the older boy became king, and never again did either boy have cares or worries, for the older boy ruled as king, and the younger boy found 3 gold coins under his pillow every morning. Their father, in the meantime, deeply regretted having chased his sons away, so he set out to find them. By the time he reached the town, he had become so poor that he was forced to beg. He made his way to the palace, and the king immediately recognized him, and he ran to his younger brother. The younger son was also delighted, and they both embraced their father. Of course, they were not angry with him, but they were a little ashamed that he looked so dishevelled. They took him to a cobbler and a tailor and had beautiful clothes and boots made for him, and they let him stay with them at their new palace. And together they lived happily ever after.
Hungarian Folk Tales. The Salt Princess. Once upon a time there lived an old king who had 3 beautiful daughters. The old king wanted to find husbands for his daughters before he died, but he could not decide which daughter should receive the most beautiful of his 3 kingdoms. So he decided to give his most beautiful kingdom to the daughter who loved him the most. The old king asked his daughters, and the eldest replied, "I love you, dear father, as a dove loves good grain." "What about you, child?" "I love you, dear father, as a hot summer day loves a cool breeze." "And what about you, daughter?" "I love you, dear father, like people love salt." "What do you mean, salt? You ungrateful child. Is this what I raised and loved you for all these years? Get out of here! Get out of my sight!" His daughter tried to explain that people love salt very much indeed. She sobbed and begged, but her father shunned her from his palace. The poor princess walked and walked. She was terribly sad. She walked until she reached a vast forest. There she found a large hollow tree, and she hid herself inside it. She lived by gathering delicious nuts and ripe berries from the green forest. One day, the prince from the neighbouring kingdom was out hunting when he happened to pass by. He was chasing a deer when he spotted the princess. But when she saw the prince, she hid in a hollow tree. The handsome prince soon found the tree and shouted into the hollow, "Who is in there?" But the princess refused to reply. "Who is in there? Speak up." "Speak up or I'll shoot." The terrified princess eventually appeared. She was so beautiful, but she could not stop crying. The prince was so overcome that he embraced the sad princess, sat her high on his horse, and took her home to his palace. Their wedding was so grand that even the dogs ate beef broth, and the young couple lived as happily as 2 doves. Time passed until the young king asked his bride one day, "Tell me, why did your father chase you away?" "Because I told him that I loved him like people love salt." "Why, is that all?" Then the young king had an idea and sent a letter to the old king, inviting him to come and visit. The old king came the very next day in a golden carriage. The young king led him to his grandest chamber and sat him down at the table. His servant served soup, but it had no salt in it. And the meat had no flavour either. The king ate a great deal, but was still left feeling hungry. He remained silent for a while, but eventually had to speak. "What kind of cook do you have, son? Who makes food with no salt?" "I heard you don't like salt, sire." "Who told you that?" "Why, your daughter, of course." Then the princess appeared. The king's daughter smiled at her old father, who shed tears of joy. Father and daughter embraced, and the king gave his most beautiful kingdom to his youngest daughter. And they all lived happily ever after.